I'd like to talk for a moment about the tree of heaven. And so, the tree of heaven, some people call it the tree of hell, it grows in abundance once you have disturbed soil out in the desert. So, what does this mean to me? Because I've done a lot of research on it, because it's actually labeled an invasive species, and the government agencies that are being paid to support our well-being have been eradicating it wherever it pops up. And in some ways, the tree of heaven could look like the tree of hell if it's growing right next to your house. Because your house is trying to be permanent. It's supposed to stay exactly the way it is all the time, right? And in the idea of permanence, there has to be rigid structure. It has to be in a way that um, it's very specific. It's under control. Whereas the tree of heaven, I have not watered that at all, and it is turning into a little forest right where um, there was no trees. And all I did is I flattened out the spot and I put down some mulch. And once it had a mulch layer, these trees all started popping up. And so I started doing my research on them, because people are saying, "Oh no, you got to cut them down. You got to get rid of them. You got to poison the ground. You got to because yeah, you can't get rid of these things, but you got to poison them. They cannot be surfacing. They cannot use this space out in the desert to create a forest and shade and water and resources." And then I started looking at other plants too that were labeled invasive species, like the milkweeds. And I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. I mean, if these things have a medicinal value or a food value, and then, oh, wait, what about hemp? Why has hemp been illegal? Almost all the other industrialized countries are growing hemp and using it for textiles and food and oil and all the things that it can produce, and paper. And I'm like, wow, wait a minute. Why? What's happening here? Why is so many of what things are natural? Why are these things being illegal or unlawful? And then I started looking up what is this legal system, and this, oh my gosh, this legal system is the undoing of God's law. What is God's law? Who knows that? I don't know. But if you and I were the only things here, the only people here, we would probably agree that I should control what I'm doing and you should control what you're doing. And when we work together, we could probably achieve more than if we're just trying to do something alone. I mean, like, if I'm trying to chisel out some square wheels to help make this cart work better, you probably would be like, "No, dummy, why are you? I'm not going to support you in that." But if you want to make a round one, I'd be willing to help you with that, because I think that would work better. And then I'd probably be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that probably work better, right? Let's do that." So the tree of heaven is something that is natural. It's something that is just present, even out in the desert, right? And all we have to do is put a little bit of action after an idea, and give it a little bit more water than what it does in a completely eroded landscape. So in an eroded landscape, like right over there, this is basically what this all of this property that I'm on right now looked like too. It was just eroded. It was sagebrush, and it was bunch grasses, and it wasn't really capable of producing much. But once I started changing the landscape to hold on to more water, trees started popping up, and I've got sumacs popping up in another valley, and the little elm trees they pop up everywhere, and there's there's a lot of resources now that are growing because we modified what was happening in our environment. So the tree of heaven, what is the problems of the tree of heaven? The roots are really strong, and if they're growing next to a house, they can uproot the foundation. They can crack your floors. They can cause some problems, right? Um, but everywhere else out in the desert or in the forest, they actually have they're a real benefit because they're self pruning. So that means that if the area that they're in doesn't have like a forest floor, they will start building a forest floor with their branches and leaves every year. They drop off almost all of their branches and most all of their leaves, and they just use it to start creating shade and a place for the bugs to start working um, out in the desert. Now, if you wanted to plant another tree in that area, you can clear out a little space and then chop down or break away the tree of heaven in the area that that little tree is. So you're giving the little tree the shade and protection from wind and sun that it needs to start growing. Then, and that's what we're doing right here. Is um, like that's an apricot tree right there. So the thing is, so when the tree of heaven, the tree of heaven needs full sun for it to thrive, and it breaks away easily. What it's producing, it lets go of really easily. So you can use it in fires. So you can be creating ash to supplement the soil. You can use it. Well, if you needed an emergency shelter, you would have that as available. So it creates like a nursery environment for all of the things that you want to grow. So it's like how the Garden of Eden is recreated. Because I was always wondering. I'm like, well, if this planet was like a Garden of Eden at one time, because that's what some of the books say. Um, why isn't it now? Right? And then I realized that we're living in a product of erosion or a product of control. And when we step into doing things another way, using our free will consciously instead of compulsively, we can recreate. Uh, we can recreate beauty, and function, and efficiency, and accountability, doing things naturally instead of how we've been conditioned as the normal. So there's a lot of plants that are just waiting for a little bit more water out in the desert to be able to start to thrive. But we need more people doing it. We need more people stepping away from the struggle of the city and coming out to the desert. Look at the view. I mean, it's a fantastic way to wake up every day. And it's even cool. They're developing a 20-acre piece over there, and we're still close enough that you can be on the grid if you want. But I think after they see my windmill and solar and gardens and stuff, it might inspire them to do things in a certain way too. They've got a lot of water that comes through that valley in the spring. So anyway, yeah, the tree of heaven. It is not an evil tree unless it's in the city. But in the city, you've got to poison everything to keep it from growing. Um, but that's the thing is Should we be growing an economy or growing forests? You know, we can turn deserted landscapes like this into food for us with our intentions and our actions, and then patience and trusting that when we do little things in the world, they make an effect. And when we start holding water to the land, we can start recreating greener landscapes that aren't susceptible to fire and flooding and erosion and drought and famine. And so through permaculture, we work how nature does naturally and transform what was into what can be. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe so that way this can be reaching more people, easier to find the videos, and maybe share it if you have gardening friends that were wondering why the tree of hell is ripping away the foundation of their permanence.